Our community has come together to tell you the history of Los Alamitos. I'm your host, Myrt Perisho. We're taping at a building that was built in 1903, and it was a home, a private home, until 1985 when the News Enterprise bought it and is now the home of the News Enterprise. The early Mexican families had a large impact on this community, and we have a couple here tonight to tell us their story that goes back as far as 1914. Welcome, Irene and Jess Torres. I'm so glad you both came. So far, right?
Right.
You came from right across the street, didn't you? Right across the street. Irene, let's start with you, because ladies first. Okay, Jess?
Sure.
Okay. All right, tell us where you were born, how you happened to come to Los Alamitos in your real early years.
Well, I was born in Chihuahua, Mexico, and in 1913. And in February of 1914, we came here to Los Alamitos.
And who's we?
My mother and I.
Uh-huh.
And we stopped with my uncle, her brother, Frank Prieto. He was here already.
And that's why you came here?
That's why she came.
What was he doing here?
He was working.
Where?
I think it was in the sugar factory.
Probably. That
Probably, I'm not sure.
Because
I can't.
Industry.
But I think it was on already. I think the sugar factory was already
I bet your
in
brother was
business.
glad to have you both show up.
Who?
I bet your mother's brother was glad that you both showed
He's
up.
dead.
Well, I mean, when you showed up.
Oh, I thought you meant.
No,
Yes.
Happy to see you.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
There
Well,
was another
tell us
brother,
about your
too.
first home here in Los Alamitos.
Well, we lived in. My mother married Juan Soto,
Uh-huh.
and his family moved, his father, and left him the place. It was a hotel.
It was a hotel here in town.
Right on Pine and Catalina. Right on the corner.
Oh, yes, Pine and Catalina. Okay. And that's where you
so
lived?
That's where we lived.
And at that time, were you renting out rooms?
Yeah, there was rooms upstairs, and mostly single men would rent it. There was a lot of people coming from Mexico, just like it is now.
Just like it is now?
Yeah, more or less, yes. Well, maybe not as much. They would first come down, then they would send for their families. And then we had rooms towards the back, 2 little rooms, and when the families came, they would live there.
And I also remember the story you told about the barn in back.
Yes,
What did you do about renting that barn?
We rented it out to a circus.
A circus.
They made we had a circus there for about 3 or 4 days.
Oh, that must have been fun for the kids in town.
For the whole
you.
town.
Yes,
For
having the
town.
barn in the back with the circus.
We had horses and pigs and cows.
Yeah, you said you had
And
lots
chickens,
of livestock
a lot of chickens,
and things like that. Well, where did you go to school?
To the Laurel School.
Now, which one was...
Well, I went to the first one. That was, I think, just one room.
And you had all the...
It was right on the corner where that sporting goods store is at.
down there by Bob's Big Boy?
Right there.
And all the classes were in one room?
Well, I think so.
You just remember the one room?
I was 7 years old when I went to school.
And
then they built the other Laurel schools toward the front, towards the Los Alamitos Boulevard.
Been a number of schools in that corner, haven't there?
And I went there. I graduated there.
You did. And where did you go to church?
In Seal Beach.
There was no church in Los Alamitos? Until when?
Well, they started it in 1923, but I think they finished it in 1924.
Or was that St. Isidore's?
St. Isidore's.
And St. Isidore's saw some problems in the earthquake, didn't it?
Oh, yeah, it fell.
Yeah.
Well, not completely, but, the walls came tumbling down.
How did you get to Seal Beach to church?
In a buggy and horse.
You had a horse and buggy of your own?
We used to go clear up to Huntington Beach to visit my mother's other brother. We'd leave in the morning, and then we'd be back before it got dark, because we didn't have no lights.
No headlights.
No headlights.
Jess, let's get over to you. You were telling me about a car you had that used to light the headlights with a match.
A Model T.
A Model T.
They used to go to the fights at Vernon.
In Vernon?
Yes,
you went to the fights?
Yes.
When you were, what, teenager age?
Oh, I was about 15 years old.
Oh. Tell me where you came from and why you came to Los Alamitos.
Well, I come here from Jalisco. That's the state of Jalisco. My city that I born about 62 miles south of Guadalajara. And then I come here to join my dad, because my dad was already here. He was here in 1914 when he came here, my dad. So I come here to join my dad.
And when you came here, what was your first job?
My first job was working in the sugar company.
How long did you work there?
It was the factory closed, 1925, I think, when they closed.
That was a long time. You worked there a long time, didn't you?
Yes.
What did you do at the sugar beet factory?
Whatever they had me to do, I just go ahead and do it.
Jack of all trades?
Jack of all trades, if you say that.
And you brought your mom and...
My mom and my sister coming here in 1923.
And then your whole family was here then?
The whole family were here then.
And you worked also many different jobs, didn't you?
Well, I worked for a lot of these farmings and the farming ranches.
When did you start on that?
I started at, when I was about 18 years old. When
Ranching
I
and
worked for the
farming?
Ranching, farming.
Was it tied in with the Bixby farm at all?
Yes. Well, not big, they owned all that land.
You owned everything?
That the farmers used to farm.
And you did that for a long time?
I'll do that till 1943, that I joined the laborers, and I worked at construction with the laborers.
You work in construction?
Mm-hmm. Till up to I retired.
Was the construction in this area that you worked on?
No.
No, out of the area?
Out of the area.
Was that a union? You joined a union?
Union, yes, ma'am. Yeah. I joined that local Santa Ana for 506.
Santa Ana?
Mm-hmm.
506?
Mm-hmm. Or 605.
Oh, 605?
605, yeah. That was the other way.
And you also spent a lot of time working for the city of Los Alamitos after you
After I
retired from there.
retired,
You just keep retiring and working, don't you?
I retired from the local, and then I worked for the city 4 years.
What did you do for the city?
Yes, maintain the streets and patching hot stuff and take care of the streets and all that.
Mostly the streets?
Mm-hmm.
It was nice to have him around the house, wasn't it? Around the neighborhood. Popped in for lunch, didn't he, Irene? When you first came to Los Alamitos, the very first girl that you met, who was that?
You want me to tell you?
Yes, I want you to tell me the story about
this lady here.
the first one you met.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
old was she?
She was 5 years old.
Did you know Destiny was knocking at the door? No? And you were knocking at the door, weren't you?
I knocked at the door. She's the one that come out to the door and answered the door. So I asked her, "Where's your mom? What are you waiting for?" So then her mama, "What do you want?" I said, "Well, I'm looking for so-and-so for my dad, Miguel Torres."
Uh-huh.
So I said, "Well, he lives so, go to the railroad track, and you're going to see a little shack there, that's where they live." I find him there.
Little did you know, right? That you'd
Uh-huh.
marry Irene.
You believe that?
Yeah, that's quite a story, Jess. When you were a teenager, what did you do for fun in this town?
Well, I'd drive my bike, go to the beaches, and ride around here on the bike. And
All your friends had bikes? You went to Seal Beach?
went to Seal Beach on my bike. A bunch of kids go with us, you know,
Uh-huh.
go to the beach.
And then when you got a little older, you drove that Model T to Vernon to the fights.
Yeah, that was a different.
That was a lot different?
Oh, yes.
How?
The only difference is that we have, as soon as it gets dark, we have to get off and light a match and start the lights on so we can have lights on it.
Did you ever get a ride in that car? No?
No, you ran that horse and a buggy.
Yeah, that was safer.
Horse and bike. What did you do as a teenager in town? What did your girlfriends do?
Well, I had friends, you know, and play with my friends, and all the people that lived in the back, they all had kids, so we all got together and played. My
Where'd your
mother
mom
used
shop?
at the Piggly Wiggly store in Anaheim, and he used to drive us.
Well, that's after I had my Model T.
Yeah,
was
he
the
used
Model
to drive
T?
us to the store. They used to get paid, I think it was every 2 weeks at the
Sugar factory.
sugar factory,
Uh-huh.
and he would drive us, and my mother would get groceries for the next, 2 weeks.
Well, now is that where most everyone shopped? Was that the
Yeah,
Piggly Wiggly?
yeah,
That
'cause
was
there
the
wasn't any
closest
big
one?
There wasn't any big store around here, just little,
Uh-huh.
tiny little market.
Just little markets?
Yeah, and that one had everything, clothes and everything, that.
Like a general store?
Yeah.
That's
more or
right.
less.
Bill Poe had told us about
Yeah.
that general store.
Uh-huh. And they had one here, too. We used, for everyday stuff like milk and meat and butter and all that stuff. We couldn't keep it because
Right.
all we had was just little ice boxes. no refrigerator.
And an iceman would come, and did you have a
Yeah,
sign in the
and
window
deliver our ice.
that told how many
When we
pounds you
wanted
wanted?
ice and when we didn't. Yeah.
You know, we're taping this because it really got started. We wanted to have this for the children in high school. And we're going to have this tape at the museum, and I think these things are things that they're going to just love coming down and hearing. How long have you been married?
Since 1929.
That's 58 years. Your 60th is coming up. How many children and grandchildren?
4. We have 4 children.
And grandchildren?
11.
11.
And 4 great-great-children.
Oh, you're lucky. Do they live close?
Well, yeah, in Garden Grove. Most of them live in Garden Grove.
You know, what I've found out about this community, that so many of the families that came here a long time ago stayed. There's a lot of people that stayed. And when we were talking before the show, you were giving the names of some of the early Mexican families that were here real early, the time you came. And if I read off some of the names, you tell me a little bit about them and if they're in town.
Well, if I can.
Oh, you know all the gossip. Come on, Irene. Tell me about the Guzmans. Tell me some good stuff about the Guzmans.
The Guzmans.
Guzmans?
Well, all there is left is the lady. She's still alive. Mrs. Guzman.
Mrs. Guzman is still alive. And is she, didn't you tell me she was quite old, elderly?
Oh, yeah.
She
She
you
must
thought
be
she might
about
be the oldest
95,
person
I
in
think.
town?
Maybe older, but keep it 95.
Oh, keep it at 95? She may
'Cause
watch the show.
They may not like it. They may sue me. Yeah, but I know she's quite old.
Now, let me see if I can just say this one right. The Navarros?
Navarros. There's some of them are still here. The daughters, you know.
Well, I have a lot more names, but you know what we're going to do right now? We're going to take a break because
Okay.
the director's got some neat things she's going to show. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Well, now that we've seen the great then and now pictures, we'll go back to the early families of Los Alamitos. So will you keep telling me all the good stuff about these families? We've got the oldest lady now in Los Alamitos down pat, right? Okay, let's go to the Mendez family.
Well, they were the ones that lived over here in the corner where the water well was. They had a water well.
Oh, they had the water well that I heard
They
about.
were the people
Okay.
that...
They lived right next door to where you live now. Okay, and what about the Mendozas?
They lived in, on Walnut, the Mendozas.
Any of those people still around?
Well, yes, but they live in Palm Springs.
They moved to Palm Springs.
But they've got some relatives here, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how about, am I saying this right, the Lemus?
Lemos?
Lemos?
Oh, yeah. Well, Consuelo is still alive, one of the daughters.
Okay.
She
And
lives in someplace towards San Francisco.
Do you keep track of any of these people by writing at all?
No, I see her once in a while.
They come back to town?
She
Do they come
comes
and
here
visit?
to town, because she's got relatives. One of her
Okay.
sister's girl lives in Long Beach,
So they come by to see?
so they come by.
What about the Canos?
Canos, well, that's my sister-in-law. She lives right next to me. I can't help thinking
You
her.
can tell me a lot of stuff about her, I bet, huh? Right, Jess?
Well, her husband was here way before me, even before me.
What brought him here?
I don't know.
I'd love to just reach back and find out what
I
brought
don't
people here
know.
before the sugar beet industry.
I really don't know.
Because I can understand that, having many jobs, but before that, the
Well,
people
I
that
guess they
came...
must, I don't know, just trying to make a living, I guess, like everybody else. I don't know if they, because I know Mr. Cano never worked. I mean, you know what I mean. He was a barber.
No, tell me.
Bill knows. He was a
Bill,
barber.
no,
yes,
we'll get him. He was a barber in
He
town.
was a barber in town.
Okay, that's working. I bet a lot of
That's-
barbers out there think they
yeah,
work.
And they had a
That's
little
good,
restaurant.
Irene. What about the Prietos?
Those are my relatives. They worked.
They were
at-
all good, weren't they?
Yeah, well, I hope so. They worked at the factory. That's what I remember.
Any of
Maybe
them still around?
their sons and daughters are still around, but they are
And
gone.
Ortegas?
They're gone too, but their sons and daughters are still alive. They all live in Palm Springs.
Oh, they all moved out
Yeah.
there. They must be crazy.
They
What
all
about
live-
Soto?
Well, there's not many left. That was part of my family, through my stepfather's side.
Okay.
Well, my sisters are Sotos. One
They're
of my-
Sotos, so they're
yeah,
here.
they're here.
They're here.
They're
Sotos,
still
okay.
alive and kicking.
And this A-Y-A-L-A, say it for me. Ayala? A-Y-A-L-A?
Ayala.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
I'm Dutch. Forgive me,
yeah,
Irene.
they're still alive too. Some of them, not the older ones, but they're in Palm Springs too.
So that was quite a community
Yeah.
of Spanish people here for
Oh,
the town being
yes,
so little.
There's a lot more that I didn't mention because it makes the story too long.
Oh, it does? Oh, all right. Jess, let's get back to you. Tell us, everyone has a story about the 33 earthquake. Tell us yours.
Well, the only thing I can say is that that was quite a shock.
Quite a
We live
shock.
in an adobe house, and half of the adobe house fell, because they don't fall on it, they fell to the outside.
The walls.
The wall
The walls fell out?
fell out
Uh-huh.
to the outside, and I got out of there. I jumped through a hole and come out there and see my mother and my dad, see if there's anything happened to them. I live in Walnut, they live in over here in Reagan.
Uh-huh.
And by the time I got back to my house, it used to be my house, adobe house, there's a little place there. Then that's when that Mr. Myers saw that gas main
Oh, I
line
like this.
broke down.
Let's get this story out. Okay. During the earthquake, you said that the street opened,
Yes,
which is now Los Alamitos Boulevard.
right.
Okay. Tell us what Mr. Myers did.
Well, he went over and got one of those lamps, red lamps,
Uh-huh.
because he saw the gas coming up there, and a lot of traffic started coming out through here, because everybody trying to get away from Long Beach, from all this area.
Oh.
So he went over and got that lamp and tried to put it there so the traffic don't go through there.
Didn't fall in the hole.
And then he pushed it over, and then the gas exploded up. Then we got a
Big
big
fire.
fire there.
Then you got a big one. So the,
We got a
the
real
light he
big
set over
one.
there to guard everyone from falling in the hole blew up the gas line that was
Right.
broken in the hole. Poor Mr. Myers. He was custodian at,
It was the
at
school
the
custodian.
grade school then,
In the lower school.
at Laurel School.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I heard from Laura Labradette about you is that your sister had a grocery store here for many years.
Yes, that's right here in the corner of Reagan and Florista.
Reagan and Florista,
Mhm.
Right next to where we
which
live.
is
Right.
right where we are now, really.
Really? Well, right across from
Across
here.
the street.
Yeah, she married this Luis Cano, the one that owned that pool hall and barber shop and everything. Then he left, and they keep that place there and tied herself with a little store.
So,
Little
but-
candy and ice cream, and well, about the late years, is that right? About the late years when they start with little
Yeah, she
that
made
little
it
market?
a little bigger market, brought in more stuff.
more stuff like meat.
she had meat at one
She had
time
it
and
meat.
Lunch
and-
meat. you
bakery
know.
goods, and so that
Uh-huh.
was really handy for this town, wasn't it?
Right.
That kind of a store.
And a lot of junk for the kids,
Lot of
for
junk for the kids.
Halloween. That's where they came from Rossmore to buy that wax candy.
From tell me what you told me about those Rossmore kids.
Well, they used to come and buy it in quantities, and I used to hear them when they were outside, and they say, well, how many are you going to sell? They used to sell them to the other kids
Resell
that
it.
couldn't make it, I guess.
They couldn't get across
And they
the street.
sold well, they used to get it for a penny.
So they
when
buy them from your sister for a
For a
penny,
penny,
and they go back
uh-huh.
and sell them to the kids for
I don't know for how much, but I bet they
3
made a
cents.
little bit.
little brats.
They had to make a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I know when my children were going to junior high years ago, there was a store they went to for candy over here
That
before
was
they go to
it.
school in the morning, and then I
Uh-huh.
find out it's your sister's store.
Yeah, that
Right.
was
That's
it.
where they were
Because
going.
that's the
It was
only-
very popular
The
with
only
the kids.
store that was here.
Torres Market, it was called.
Torres Market?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but how many years did she run that?
Quite a lot. Over 20, I think.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
over 20.
Oh, well over 20
she
years?
Was, oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah,
She was there
over.
a long time.
Is she still alive?
She's
Oh,
still
yeah,
alive.
She's still alive.
She's in Los Alamitos?
Right
She lives
across
right
from
in
here.
back of us. That little house by the alley. That's where she's at. She's 88 years old.
If there was one thing you could go back and have here again from when you were young kids, what would it be?
Well,
What would you like to have back
you mean
again?
I'd have to be young, huh?
Yeah, what
not
would you
at
like
my
to see
age.
here? Well, yeah, all right, if you were
The
young.
picnics
That's it.
we used to have when the sugar factory ended, the season ended.
Uh-huh. That's what you miss most.
Well, yeah, sort of. You know, we used to have
Oh.
wonderful picnics.
We've got pictures at the museum of those picnics.
Yeah.
The kids were all dressed up and
It was
lots,
really,
big
really
picnics,
a
weren't
lot
they?
of fun.
Hundreds of
Uh-huh.
kids.
They used to take us to, I think it was Irvine Park or Orange County Park, in the trucks from the sugar factory.
Oh.
Those Big Macs. You remember?
Bill Poe was standing behind Irene.
Yeah, he
In case you're
knows.
wondering why she's
And they
turning
used to,
around.
all the kids and a lot of grown-ups, you know,
Uh-huh.
used to go with us.
At the end of the season.
At the end of the,
Jess, what would you like to see back again?
That too, because I used to have a lot of fun with
Picnics
that
really,
Really
stand out in
enjoy
your
it.
mind.
yeah.
too. Really.
Yeah.
Because
And-
that was clean fun, you know.
Sure.
Nice.
Yeah. And the quietness of the town.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
What disturbs you the most about the town? Or about life now in Los Alamitos?
Our neighbors.
Oh, I knew I'd get a good one out of you, Irene. You're not going to tell me which ones. are
Well,
you?
no.
No,
New
which
people
name?
that are coming in, you know.
Wait a minute.
And-
Don't say our neighbor, because we got a good neighbors right here.
No, well, I don't mean you.
Well, you don't mean
I mean where
the
they
Youth
have
Enterprise.
teenagers.
Oh, where they've
And
got loud teenagers.
Loud teenagers
Yeah.
and loud parties and drinking and
Oh,
smoking and
yeah, who wants that?
that.
Nobody.
That's
No
what-
one. What about you, Jess? What bothers you the most?
Well, that too, because I'm 88 years old, and
Well, you're not 88.
Yeah, 78. No,
80.
80 years old.
You're 80.
80 years old. And
Pretty
by the
soon
time
I'm
I
going to
have
be older than him.
I'm a little sick, and oh, that sure bothered me.
Yeah, it's hard to take, isn't
Well,
it?
Oh, yeah,
there was a lot of noise, you know, not just the neighbors, all over, I think.
Well,
Even the cars, you
you're
know,
a
that
block
go
from
by.
Los Alamitos Boulevard and
Yeah,
everything.
you
So
know.
if we could have the picnics back and the big radios out of here, it'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah. For us old people, but not for the young. The young want that, you know.
What about Halloween time around this town? What did you do? Hope the camera got that look.
Amy knows, don't you, Amy?
We used to go 12, 15 kids and go around the neighborhood and knock the toilets down and knock
The
the
outside.
fences down. And
The
go to
outside.
the, go
And
to
the-
the farmer's field and bring the rakes here where they used to rake the alfalfa and hay and put them in the middle of the street. Oh,
You
we're
went and
terrible.
got. You were terrible. You went and got the rakes from
Oh,
the
yeah,
farmers.
yes.
They couldn't find them, and you knocked
And
over
the signs,
outside
the
toilets.
signs too.
The
It would be out in the
signs.
middle of the street, you know. The sign from the filling stations,
Uh-huh.
they would be out in the middle of the streets.
You devil, you.
What?
Did he ever take you trick-or-treating or,
No,
or Halloweening
no.
or anything? You keep saying you never did
Her
any
mother
of that
don't
stuff.
let
I
her.
don't believe you,
No.
Irene. I think you
Her
were a
mother
devil.
don't let her go out with
No,
me.
I
Your
wasn't.
mother wouldn't let you go out?
No, I just wasn't that kind of a girl.
Well, I have just
No.
loved talking about all this. I know you've got a lot more stories because I've been hearing you chit-chat back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And anything you'd like to say to the youth of today, what would it be?
Well,
You've got so many grandchildren.
I
You
know
must
it.
be
I think-
forming opinions.
for them to obey their parents and respect them. Because you see so much, you know, that they don't respect their parents. And And nobody loves them like their parents, you know.
That
I
was-
think to me that would be a very good thing for them to always love their parents and respect them.
That's
And
really
their
nice,
elders
Irene.
too.
Their elders. What did you do with kids that got in trouble here years ago? Did you have some kind of a jail?
I don't
What did
think
you have
so.
in town? You didn't have a jail?
Well, yeah, they had a little
They
jail.
had a little jail. They keep him for a night, and then they take him to Orange County Jail.
Oh,
we
where
have-
was the jail in town?
Right here by the city hall. In the city hall.
In the city hall?
In the city hall.
But we didn't need it that.
You didn't have a very big police force either, did you?
No.
I don't think we had any.
You didn't have any police?
No, I don't think so.
You just get Jess and
No.
Bill Poe and
Yeah, and
Amy
Amy,
I
and they got their shotguns and went around.
Leo Waite and a few of them.
scare
and-
people. No, they came from the sheriff would come, I think, out
Oh.
when there was
Oh,
a trouble. You know, the sheriff from
Well-
Sandan,
Orange
From
County.
Santa Ana?
Orange County. Yeah.
It has been a delight having you two. I am so pleased that you came on the show. I'm so glad that we got your name and we got acquainted with you and everything, and I hope we stay friends.
Oh, well, sure will.
We
Okay.
will.
And
will.
thank you, and tell your neighbors I said hello.
Okay.
Okay. Until our next section on this show, this is Myrt Perisho saying goodbye.